Howdy, Pilly G's. Hope everyone's having a great week.
Yes, sir. First up on this week's dose, we have Function Health, which just announced a $53 million Series A led by Andreessen Horowitz. This company aims to empower people to live 100 healthy years through its comprehensive lab tests and personalized health dashboard.
Then you'll hear about HeyGen, which just raised a $60 million Series A to scale visual storytelling for businesses. The round was led by Benchmark and brings their valuation to a solid half unicorn, approximately $500 million in valuation. And lastly, stick with us for a breakdown on Apex, a Los Angeles-based satellite manufacturing startup that just secured $95 million in Series B funding to accelerate production of its productized satellite buses.
Wow, another great dose with a great smattering of companies right there. We're excited to get into it. So without further ado, here we go.
Let's get into it.
You see here, kid, you gotta just go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before. You just gotta bend your knees, take a deep breath, and jump.
This is Venture Pill, your weekly dose of startups and venture capital. We break down recent startups in the news and interview founders and investors to help you stay informed in the evolving world of venture.
Okay, first company of this week's dose is Function Health, which just announced a $53 million Series A led by Andreessen Horowitz. This round included probably the most impressive list of celebrity investors we've ever covered on the pill here. So I'm going to list some off. This is not even all of them. We got Matt Damon, Kevin Hart, Zac Efron, some heartthrobs there. Joel Embiid as well of Embiid Ventures, which I wasn't aware he had a
Very
venture
cool.
firm. Blake Griffin, Colin Kaepernick, so some athletes there. And then also some folks from the health tech space, Levels co-founder and author Dr. Casey Means, great follow on X or Twitter if you're interested, and former Aura CEO Harpreet Singh Rai, as well as Equinox chairman Harvey Spivak. So, just a great list of individuals right there. Not to mention, this company is founded by, I would call him a celebrity. At least I know him through the information I consume, and I know his podcast, Dr. Mark Hyman. So he was the founder of the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine. He's an extremely well-known thought leader in the health and longevity space, functional health. And he has a great podcast of his own, which we don't often plug other podcasts ourselves, but it's called The Doctor's Pharmacy. And I will say, probably stole our pun methodology there, but we'll leave that for another conversation. Dr. Mark Hyman founded this alongside co-founder and CEO Jonathan Swerdlin and a few other co-founders listed on the website. So a great team, great list of investors to start this week's dose off.
Yeah, I think we'll let the pun theft slide if we can get Dr. Mark Hyman on the podcast. So the ball is in his court. The ball is in his court, and a star-studded cast of investors on the cap table there. Let's get into Function Health. In short, their mission is to empower people to live 100 healthy years. Something we can all get behind for sure.
Yeah.
And so now digging a little deeper into what they offer and how it actually works. Function offers an innovative and comprehensive set of over 100 lab tests across all areas, including the heart, thyroid, hormones, brain, cancers, and many more. And this is 5 times more tests than a typical doctor physical would require. And so you get all of these tests conducted for $499 per year or $42 per month. So it's your classic subscription model. And then results are stored so members can actually spot their health trends over time and easily share the results with doctors and continue to monitor and maybe see how different things may impact different components of their health. Easy to think of it as just a truly comprehensive health dashboard that is personalized and actionable. Like I just said, if you see a certain thing causes a flare-up in one thing, you can maybe know to cut that out. Really cool way to take control of your health.
Yeah. So all part of that subscription is the software and the testing. You can also retest anytime at a low cost and can purchase non-routine tests. So think they list like Lyme disease, STDs. Of personal interest to me is allergies. So they have one for like seasonal and for food allergies, which is awesome. They also have access to the latest developments in testing, such as like multi-cancer early detection, which is cool. So staying on the cutting edge. And while they don't accept insurance, they do work with FSA and HSA. So I know I'm excited to put some of my funds there to use for this. And my girlfriend had already mentioned that she was going to sign up to do this. And I was like, wait a second, this sounds like that company that you're going to do those tests. And so it all came to fruition and I got excited about it. So yeah, this is one I'm actually really eager to give a try.
Yeah, that's funny and agreed. This, I mean, you and I have discussed in the past how health is, first and foremost one of those things that we're always happy to invest in, and we've talked about wearable technology as well, and being able to track your metrics on an Apple Watch or Whoop or whatever it may be. This isn't a wearable, of course, but still being able to have a dashboard where you can really see all the different metrics, make a little more sense out of them. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I will say that it's wearables, I think, in large part, that have introduced more health analytics to the mainstream and given people an opportunity to learn a little bit more about their body by themselves without going to a doctor and having them tell you. I think it's cool that a lot of people are now interested in taking control of their own health. And I think it was through that revolution of wearables and data that are now accessible to the wide public that has paved the way for a company like this to be successful and open people's minds to this. So pretty exciting.
Yeah, agreed. Just breaking down those barriers to understanding your body and what's going on inside, and health terminology that might get a little lost in the weeds for those of us who aren't in that profession. And so to wrap up this segment on function, just want to talk about a couple trends like we like to do. So longevity and biohacking have both grown in popularity in recent years as people continue to have more access to their own personal health data and want to invest in their long-term healthy lifespan. That said, the traditional health system and medical beliefs do not always align with this new movement, and hence companies like Function have found an avenue to break into the market and help bridge the gap between the traditional health system and people who, again, want to actually be able to see and track their health in a more digestible manner.
Yeah. It's really fascinating, this longevity movement and biohacking and how that can be brought to the masses. You hear about guys like Brian Johnson, who's a successful entrepreneur, and biological age, and he's obsessed with investing in his body and spending, such and such per year, millions of dollars. Then there's other guys out there that I've come across who try to figure out okay, that's not realistic for everybody. It's cool, but how can we get our biological age down, basically be healthier and younger than our actual age says? And I think it's companies like these that are really putting that into motion and into market and making it very doable. $499, not cheap. We understand that, but I think it's a great start and to empower people with the data they need. So super cool. Again, excited to try it out. Obviously, with this funding, they're going to invest in getting the distribution of this test. They're going to invest in the distribution of the tests themselves, as well as improving their technology to make it as easy as possible for people to take control of their health and live a longer, healthier life. So I'm personally obsessed with this idea. I'm excited to try it out and love to cover health tech or fitness tech or nutrition related companies. So this was right up our alley, and hopefully some of the pilgrims share this passion and are interested in trying it out too. We don't have a Venture Pill promo code, but spreading the good word.
Yeah, and as a final note, you just did such a great job wrapping up that segment, partner. But we mentioned the $500 a year not being cheap. The traditional health system isn't really cheap either. And when you think about the hundreds of different tests you're getting and the ease and availability of it, it's probably not that far off from the traditional health system, the charges that would be associated with that. It definitely is a little bit of a drawback that you can't use your insurance for this, but if you have a company that offers an HSA or FSA benefit, then it's a similar concept. So it's really a matter of spending this much because you want to be able to granularly track all these different components and tests within your body.
I agree. I think, like we said earlier, and we've said before on other episodes, investing in one's health is, really not hard to justify. I think that's getting more mainstream and accepted that you should and can spend money and time to better your health over the long term. So that's a great trend to be hopping on, and I think opportunity for Function to really make a name for themselves in the industry.
For our second company on this week's dose, we have HeyGen, which just raised a $60 million Series A to scale visual storytelling for businesses. This latest round values the company at $500 million, half unicorn, which marks a significant jump from its previous valuation of $440 million, which was only a few months ago. So a $60 million valuation jump in just a couple months. What is your secret? A lot of startups would love to replicate that level of explosive growth.
Yeah, well, I think the secret is a half unicorn is kind of like what I picture, like a centaur unicorn, half man, half unicorn. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if that's the secret, but
which part is man? Which part is unicorn?
Definitely the horn.
Need the horn
part. That's kind of key. Can't take the horn out of the corn.
Sound off in the comments. Anyways, bringing us back to earth here. The $60 million round was led by Benchmark, with participation from Thrive Capital, Bond, SV Angel, and several others.
Yeah, so setting the scene, well, it's obvious we live in a video-first world. Collectively, humans watch more than 1 billion hours of YouTube videos alone every single day.
Jeez.
The average, yeah. And the average person consumes 17 hours of video per week. Whether we want to learn a new skill or be entertained, video is today's most engaging form of visual storytelling for sure.
For sure. And businesses are catching wind of this as well, as they increasingly look for new ways to engage with their audience through video. That said, businesses are held back by the cost and complexity of traditional video production methods. Traditional methods can take weeks or longer to script, cast, produce, edit, etc. You and I, we're pros, we're professional podcasters, and it still takes us a lot of time. If you're a business, working in some small industry that is not adjacent to videos, then it could be a big learning curve and also costly.
Absolutely. And a lot of different types of videos. I think it's a little easier to make a podcast, but not every business needs a podcast type of video. They need something much more creative and therefore more challenging. Not to discount what we're doing.
Whoa.
Here. We got a well-oiled machine, years of experience at this point. So certainly proud, but yeah, I think the distinction is key. There's a lot of types of videos that are hard to make.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, but a little bit more on HeyGen's mission and actually what their product is. So they want to make visual storytelling accessible to businesses of all sizes. So they do that by allowing users to create, localize, and personalize studio quality videos without the need for any cameras, actors, or crew. And of course, that's done by artificial intelligence. So it's as simple as typing a script and letting the AI work its magic. The platform can also localize existing videos into 175 different languages and regional dialects while preserving the speaker's natural voice and syncing their lips to the new language. And as you mentioned, as we were talking through this, like that's a big deal as opposed to the classic, dubbing of another language over moving lips that doesn't really make sense or look too pleasant.
Yeah, it takes away from the video, I would even say, because you're just like this, you're distracted by it. Yeah, tough to do.
Just give me subtitles, but not anymore. Don't even need to get into the subtitles or no subtitles argument now.
It's true. That's a side benefit of this startup is just saving millions of arguments from going on. And so, yeah, simple isn't maybe the right word to use here, but really making the video production process incredibly simple and straightforward, just loading in a script and they'll take care of everything.
Simple, but not easy.
Yes, well said. Easy in the sense of saving a lot of money on cameras and actors and the opportunity cost of time that goes into all of that. And so moving forward here, we want to talk about traction because that's really the point to double down with HeyGen, because the startup has seen explosive growth of late, skyrocketing from $1 million to over $35 million in annual recurring revenue, ARR, in just over a year, 35xing their revenue in just over a year. I imagine, or I in fact know, that must contribute to that $60 million valuation jump we talked about at the top of this segment. That is incredible. The startup has over 40,000 business customers globally, ranging the full spectrum from small businesses to nonprofits, all the way up to Fortune 500 companies. And the platform is used across various industries and in various different ways as well, including advertising. So, for example, McDonald's viral Grandma McFlurry campaign leveraged HeyGen's technology. Alternatively, it's also used in investor communications. So WiseTech Global also leverages HeyGen. And another interesting use for this, and ties into the lip dubbing we talked about earlier, it's also been used for some political addresses. So the platform was used to translate speeches given by the mayor of Yokosuka, Japan, as well as Argentine President Milei at the World Economic Forum. So, giving a speech in front of millions worldwide, instead of having that bad dub experience or having to use subtitles, now you can understand the Argentinian president like he's speaking in English right across from you.
Yeah, as you said, a wide variety of use cases there. I think the possibilities are endless, and clearly that's what's driven the growth. The product's selling itself to a certain extent. I don't know how you grow from 1 million to 35 million in a year's time. That's impressive. So kudos to the team there at HeyGen. With this new funding, they're going to pour some fuel on the fire. That's for sure. Accelerate the product roadmap, double down on investments in enterprise security, AI ethics, and trust and safety. Obviously, as they're working with more of these large enterprises, that's going to be even more important. And the company has also brought on 3 new board executives to guide their next phase of growth. And when you grow that fast, you have to quickly mature. So obviously the money helps out. They got money coming in and coming in on an annual recurring basis. So it's more so the strategic partnership there and the maturing and the hiring that needs to happen. So a big step in growth for this company. One of the fastest growing companies I think we've covered in at least recent memory. So super impressive.
Yeah, no, agreed. And when diving deeper into the company, I believe I recall reading it's about 3 years old. And by the halfway mark, about 1.5 years in, they were already profitable, which is another rare and incredible thing to highlight for a startup to reach profitability that quickly. Usually startups have to raise capital, a lot of capital, before actually getting profitable. They were able to do it, in just 1.5 years before even raising a Series A. So tip of the cap, like you mentioned, one of the most explosive and exciting companies that we've covered. Now, of course, because this is an AI company, a big obstacle is people's trust and the ethics of using it. But like you said, they're addressing it, and it's a hurdle that I think a lot of businesses and people in general will have to learn to overcome in some capacity, right? It feels inevitable that AI will be weaved into many components, if not every component of our professional lives. And so, not to say don't protect your data security and use it unethically, but it is a hurdle that they'll have to overcome. And given their ARR, I think they've done a pretty good job of doing that so far.
Yep. Well said, partner.
Okay, and wrapping up this week's dose, we have Apex, which is a Los Angeles-based satellite manufacturing startup that just secured $95 million in Series B funding to accelerate production of its productized satellite buses. Founded to address the bottleneck in satellite bus manufacturing, Apex aims to standardize and scale production of those satellite buses, thereby reducing lead times and enabling rapid deployment of payloads to orbit. And so this approach has garnered interest from commercial, government, and defense sectors.
Yeah, so essentially, just trying to break this down a little bit more like a satellite bus. That sounds awesome. I think essentially it's just delivering stuff to space. So pretty cool. And we've covered space tech in other doses before, and we know that a massive amount of investment is going into the space, for lack of a better term. So a key component, kind of like supplying the picks and shovels to the gold rush, right? Maybe. So love what they're doing here. Some key developments to highlight. They had a successful first mission back in March of this year when they launched and commissioned their first spacecraft, Ares, demonstrating the viability of the productized approach. And now, with flight heritage achieved, the company is focused on growth. So with that growth in mind, they have some expansion planned. Ares is a 100-kilogram bus supporting up to 150 kilograms of payload. So they'll work on that one. From there, they'll go to Nova, which doubles the capacity of Ares and is planned for the beginning of next year. And from there, we look ahead to Comet, which will support payloads of up to 500 kilograms.
Yeah, so that's their expansion of the product line. Let's get into another part of their growth. They're ramping up production. So for this year, Apex is on track to manufacture 5 Ares spacecrafts. In 2025, the company plans to complete and launch 2 Nova buses, like you just mentioned. Again, Nova has doubled the capacity of Ares, twice as big of a bus to get your goods into the final frontier. And by 2026, the company aims to produce up to 100 Ares buses annually. So pretty aggressive production expansion and scaling there, but we will get into how they're doing that in a little bit.
Yeah, so big demand here. They've seen increasing interest in buses from companies planning commercial applications, as well as government agencies, obviously, and defense contractors who wanted to use Apex as a bus supplier for government contracts. And since the launch of the first Ares, there has been an increase in the demand signal from all 3 markets, especially defense contractors. And that can be big money in that space for sure.
Right, yeah, it's no coincidence that this big fundraise comes on the heels of that successful mission in March, right? That was a proof of concept and has certainly piqued interest that was already there in the first place amongst these 3 different markets that they're seemingly targeting to start. And so looking towards growth plans moving forward, the company plans to double its workforce to about 100 employees by the end of the year. Additionally, the company's new Factory 1 facility in LA can accommodate increased production of Ares and Nova buses up to about 100 per year. So that ties back to their ramping up in production that we covered earlier. And also, they plan to bring production of some components in-house to address supplier limitations and optimize their supply chain. I think this one is intuitive. It's just really just them playing into economies of scale as they anticipate demand increasing for the product. And once the Nova comes out and eventually the Comet as well, those government, defense, and commercial customers will be chomping at the bit for these. So they just want to make sure that they're able to match production with demand.
Yeah, absolutely. So in short, to kind of wrap things up here, Apex's productized approach aims to accelerate space capabilities by eliminating the need for custom-built buses for every spacecraft, right? And so the strategy positions Apex to meet the growing demand for satellite deployment, particularly in national security and defense sectors. So just wanted to kind of synthesize everything we just talked about as another industry that we're certainly not the experts in, but always do our best to make it digestible and understandable to a certain extent. Obviously, technology is at a high level here, and we don't know of other companies building this type of satellite bus, but obviously there are plenty of competitive players in the space generally, in another space pun that I'm not meaning to do. But a lot of other players in this area, God, I want to say space. Yeah, but a lot of other companies building in space tech. So who's to say that, a SpaceX wouldn't get into this, or some of the other companies out there? Remains to be seen. But again, I like that picks and axes analogy here as the new space revolution kicks into gear. It's one we're really passionate about, and me personally, at least, bringing this into the private sector. Forget which episode we would have talked about that on, but you think back to the government funding the space race back in the mid-1900s, and kind of a lull in what we've seen in terms of space exploration and technology development is kind of being reborn now, and which we love to cover. And again, a really cool technology and mission to get behind.
Man, if we could just copy and paste your entire disclosure on us being in over our head, plus how fired up we are about how venture capital is fueling the space race, we would save ourselves so much time. Beautifully said, partner. Totally agreed.
We could use HeyGen to do it. What are we talking about? That's easy enough.
You're right. But alrighty, partner. That just about does it for this week's dose. As always, we appreciate our listeners taking the time and hope you enjoyed this week's diverse dose. Until next time, pilgrims.
Signing off. Thanks for listening. Join us next week for another dose of startups and venture capital. And as always, we appreciate our pilgrims spreading the word about the show. Share with your friends and help someone else make the pilgrimage. See you next time.
She told me that she only bumps my music when she's lonely. Thinks my vibe's a little low-key, okie dokie, that's alright, but wait, I don't know how to do things different.